And we are live, everyone.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I call the March 14th, 2022 meeting to order. If you would please say the Pledge of Allegiance with me once the flag is on the screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And then I invite you to join us in the statement of intent as soon as that comes up on the screen also. Thank you. We gather today in this room as one people to discuss and attend to the matters of Red Wing. Together, as a government body and as community members, we agree to treat everyone with courtesy, dignity, and respect. We will listen to all sides of an issue, encourage participation, support each other, act with honor and accountability, and inspire pride in our community. This we commit as we open this meeting. All right, thank you. Next item is excusal of members. Kay, would you please do a roll call?
Hove. Norden.
Here.
Bizey.
Here.
Stinson.
Here.
Buss. And I did hear from Erin that she is ill. Brown.
Aye, here.
All right, thank you. So the motion to excuse Erin.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Dean, second by Evan to excuse Erin. Okay, roll call, please.
Norton.
Aye.
Stinson.
Aye.
Hove.
Aye.
Bizey.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, there being no proclamations or recognitions, that brings us to item 7, presentations and public comment. And we're going to start with Kim Wojcik. Is that correct, Kim?
Yes, that's correct.
Great, welcome. You're here to talk to us about the Red Wing area edition, I guess, the patio.
Yes, so we are really glad to be on the agenda, so thank you first for that. And then I hope everybody had an opportunity to look at the summary there and the pictures. And first, I really the Red Wing area seniors would like to thank the city for the current support that they give area senior citizens, which is the reduced rent at Anna D's, and then also essential support with the Field of Honor, because we couldn't do that Field of Honor without Pat and your help. So we are grateful for that help for seniors. And speaking of seniors, I think everybody knows and loves a senior. And I'm sure you're all aware of COVID and how hard that hit particularly the senior community and how so many seniors were extremely isolated. And it was at that time where this idea kind of formed. We were thinking when we had those closures, wouldn't it be nice to have usable, accessible, familiar space where seniors could gather and we could still provide services? So our current outdoor space, if you've been there, and at that time it's just rocks and shrubs, so it's not usable space at all. So from that, we started to think about, would it be possible once we get through this COVID to look at turning that space into something that would be usable all of the time? So we would be looking at making that accessible to any area senior. And what would be nice about it would be that it's familiar, it's easily accessible. There's no grass to get to or anything like that. And parking wise, it's really accessible. So the Pier 55 Proud project would just transform. We wouldn't be adding or anything. We would transform the existing rocks and shrubs into space where people could, sit and read a book, gather on their own, be part of actual service programming, do fitness and yoga, anything like that. And again, it would be open to the entire senior community. It wouldn't be member specific or anything like that. And then also, I think as the executive director, most importantly, is if we would venture into some type of virus restriction situation again, we wouldn't have a break in the services we provide seniors if it was warm weather. So we wouldn't be kind of sitting with our hands tied in that. So on behalf of myself and the seniors, we want to thank you for any support that you are willing to give us. And then I'm not sure how this works, but I'm definitely open for questions. So I don't know if we can open it up for questions or what you want to do there.
Yeah, I'm going to open it up for questions, but I'm also going to note that I, of course, forgot approval of the agenda. So we'll do this item and then we'll go back to that item. So
Okay.
my apologies to the rest of the council for my oversight there. Yeah, so I want to open it up for a question from any council members on the project that Kim has presented to us. Yeah, Evan.
Yeah, Kim, thank you for this. When would you be doing the construction? I didn't quite see where that, unless I missed it.
Sure. Yep. If we're able to secure the funds, we would start April 15th, weather permitting. So if the ground is able to be concrete ripped up and put in April 15th, and they don't want to give us a finish deadline, which I can understand, but he's saying it would be usable warm weather this year. So
Finished product.
Great, thank you.
So, yeah, and KIC, you jumped on there too. Yeah. You might have the answer to the question I was already going to ask.
So what was your question? I was going to add up something about bringing this item back to the next meeting so that you have time to think about it. If that was your question.
That was it exactly, is if you would bring it back with some ideas or suggestions from staff about some funding possibilities and so that we could take a look at it.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kim before we let her go tonight? Great, thank you so much, Kim, for your presentation this evening.
no, thank you. And we just value our seniors so much, and we know how that population is growing. So anything would be great.
It'll be nice to see some movement again, some energy after a couple of years of all of us being quiet. So I appreciate the effort. And an outdoor patio in this climate is always good to get people outside when we can.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Okay, our next item is to go back to item 5, approval of the agenda, please.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion by Evan, second by Dean to approve the agenda. Okay, would you do a roll call on that, please?
Yes, Hove.
Aye.
Bizey.
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
Norton.
Aye.
Stinson.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Great, thank you. Thanks everyone for working with me on that error. All right, now that brings us to item 7B, a presentation on rain barrels and compost bins. I see both Kelsey and Jeff there, so welcome both of you.
Hi, thanks for having us today. I'm Kelsey Van Duzen and I'm representing the Stormwater Department, and Jeff Schneider is here also representing the Solid Waste Department. And we are coming to you to propose purchasing 50 rain barrels and 50 compost bins, and then hosting a sale to residents on Saturday, April 23rd. The rain barrels and compost bins would be purchased from Recycling Association of Minnesota, and they work with many other cities and counties to offer this sort of sale to residents, sometimes at a subsidized cost. So we're proposing to purchase them and then sell them to residents at a cost of $50 each to the residents. So we would subsidize the cost, $40 on the rain barrel and $26 on the compost bin. And then include some information on sustainable use and practices on how to use their rain barrels and the compost bins when they purchase them. Both of our budgets currently allow for these costs. The total upfront costs are $4,500 from the stormwater and $38 from the solid waste. And then after the sale, recouping those funds would be $2,000 from the stormwater and $1,300 from the solid waste budget. So like I said, it'll be a limited number, just 50 rain barrels and 50 compost bins, and it would be a sale to just the city residents. kind of a kickoff to what we're looking at for a stormwater fee credit. We're thinking about offering that $50 credit for rain barrel or rain garden. And it's a great way to kind of pilot this and offer some more sustainable opportunities for residents throughout the city. Jeff, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, sure. So this is really kind of in line with the directive that we've been receiving from council to look more into organics and composting operations. We did just receive a $140,000 grant from the MPCA to help kind of supplement our already the funding that we already going to put forward to looking at organics. And I think that this is a great opportunity for us to kind of get this out there into public as a promotional event here and see kind of what the feedback and what the appetite is from residents for something like this.
Thank you. Yeah, and I know we talked about this item and the potential sort of credit coming later on. So I appreciate this one coming before us. Some questions for Kelsey or Jeff? Kelsey, it looks like in the write-up, you had stated that the city was subsidizing it by $40 or $50, and I think the write-up said the city would subsidize the cost to offer them to residents at a cost of $40 each. Is that an error or?
Yep, sorry, that's an error in the write-up. So they would be at $50 to residents.
Okay. The rain barrel would be 50 and the compost bin would also be 50
as well. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Kelsey or Jeff? Yes, Dean.
Just out of curiosity, do you have any that you can actually take a look at?
We don't have them yet. We are going to purchase them ahead of time and store them out at the solid waste campus until the sale.
Well, it says on here that you can connect these together, and so I guess I was a little more interested in that and how that happened, and then where you can hook the hose to, because it doesn't show that, and that's how you use it, you know.
Right.
So, okay.
Yep, they do come with some instructions on how to install and use them also.
Yeah, if you see a spigot on the side for the rain barrel.
Yeah, it doesn't. Mine's quite a bit larger than what this one is. I just acquired one last year, so, but it's not, and it's a lot. I got it up off the ground, so when I hook a hose up to it, I got water pressure too, which is really nice. So, okay.
All right.
Looks good. Thank you.
So, Kay, can we take a look at this item in the future for us to make a vote on as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Anything else for Jeff or Kelsey? Great. Thank you both. I'm looking forward to seeing this roll out. So we'll see it on the next meeting, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item 8, board and commission communication, and we'll start with a Port Authority update from our director, Kyle Klatt. Welcome, Kyle.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the council. Just want to make sure you can hear me okay. Excellent. All right. So I'll just try to do a quick verbal summary of the report that's in your packet and then open it up for any questions about some of the activities of the port. So just to start out with, in terms of the port meeting, the port board met on March 1st of this year and had 3 business items. The business items are listed in your report there. The first was a presentation by the Big Turn Music Festival. We received an update from Marcus Warrington, who was representing the Big Turn Music Festival, basically reporting that the festival was canceled this year due to concerns about safety and COVID and some other issues. However, they did conduct a smaller event at the Sheldon Theater over 2 nights, and my understanding is that event went very well. They were happy with the way it turned out. Obviously disappointed they weren't able to do the full festival, but are planning on coming back with that in future years. I did note here that they did return a portion of the money that that was granted by the port for their marketing and setup for the event. However, they did use some of that money to set up a website and some of their outreach and marketing. So that will continue forward in future years. And so I think we're happy to be able to help them out, at least get that set up and get that going. There were two grants also authorized by the board at this last meeting. The first was a sign and awning grant for Synergy Group. If you've been downtown along 3rd Street, you've seen their signs up, I'm sure. And that's the second grant that's been issued through the sign and awning program. Again, so there's remaining about $15,000, $16,000 remaining in that fund to use throughout the rest of this year. Then Downtown Main Street had requested funding to help establish a first-time event program. This program would be intended to help promote events, first-time events, with a focus on either downtown or the West End district, but could apply anywhere throughout the community. The port did agree to contribute $13,000 for that, the majority of which is coming out of the port's marketing budget. And so we're excited to see that program launch this year and move forward. I should point out that Downtown Main Street had requested similar funding, I think it was 2 years ago at the end of 2019, which is right at the start of COVID. With COVID hitting and other things happening, they decided to hold off on doing this program until now. So again, we're excited to see that move forward. The other meeting we had is that the port did conduct its annual workshop on February 26th of this year. The board really did an overview of the goals and objectives for the coming year, looking at its 5-year strategic plan and evaluating where progress has been made at achieving some of the objectives from that plan and what work is really going to be done coming forward this year. Because we had a discussion, there was some minor changes and tweaks to that document, and we'll be bringing that document back for consideration and action for the board at its April meeting, just to kind of confirm and establish what the priorities will be for this year and some of the work that the port hopes to get done. And then there's an update on a couple committee meetings. I think the two big ones were the Strategic Committee, which is our committee of port members, and then some of our downtown investment partnership, including some of the foundation members. There was a meeting with the developer of the Associated Bank building, where he was present and gave an update on his activities and a good overview of his project, in addition to the financing that he is proposing for the property. And then kind of stemming from that, the gap that exists right now that has been part of the ongoing discussions with him over how to move forward with the project on that site. I think it was a really good opportunity for our board members to hear directly from the developer, and especially for the foundation members to hear as well. He has remained committed to trying to get a project done on this site, and has been, I think, fairly open with the city about what his issues, concerns are, and how, what he needs to see to move a project forward on that particular site. So we are going to keep talking to him about options for narrowing that financial gap. The committee did really strongly recommend that the city, or at least some representatives of the city and maybe some of the foundation partners, approach the bank to see if there is some willingness to consider either a price reduction, donation, or some other kind of form of contribution to make that project reality. So we're investigating that. And as I said here, I've been working with some of our investment partners on kind of how that approach might look and what that might look like. So we're excited to at least ask the question and see if we can make some progress on making, reducing the gap that exists right now, but also making some progress towards a bigger project there. And then the other kind of major committee update was the West End subcommittee met to discuss next steps in redevelopment of the former Bowerbilt building. As I'm sure the council is aware, the port's been tasked with moving forward with redevelopment of that particular building, which the city now owns. We really have two kind of next steps that are identified here early in this year. One will be doing a building evaluation to really get an understanding of the condition of the building and what the options will be for reuse of that particular space. And then secondly, working with our consultants, we've decided to move forward with some interviewing and questions for developers that might be a potential fit for that building. And this is intended to help give us some feedback on, what the development community has to say about Red Wing, the West End district, and this building in particular, and potentially get the word out there to these developers that this building is available and see what kind of feedback we get. So as part of the attachments, you have kind of our process outline for how the port and our committee kind of views moving forward with development. We're looking at really two options right now. One would be just going out for an RFP and trying to really promote private development of the site. The second would be a more active involvement of the city in either owning or leasing the building to a potential developer or client, and hopefully getting into a situation where there's a long-term agreement to lease to own or otherwise eventually transfer ownership of that building forward. So there's some questions we're still sorting through on that building and to see what that process looks like. But I think we see that or feel that the next step of getting some input from developers will be very important for us to really gauge the market and help us make that decision about the next step and how to move forward. So maybe before I go into the just general update to the port, I'll stop there and see if there's any questions about just the last port meeting and in particular the business items that we talked about.
Any questions for Kyle? Okay, Kyle, go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to kind of wrap up here then. In terms of the general update that from the director's report, the Port Authority, I think one of the big things from that is that our staff is continuing to, or has been recently, re-engaging with our economic development partners to kind of move that group forward and get them thinking more strategically about how that group's going to function, what the purpose of the group is, and how all of us as economic development partners can better get along and better share information. So I think the big takeaway from our early conversations is that we are planning on doing a half-day retreat with all of our economic development partners, and they've all committed to going to this and participating in this effort. With hiring a facilitator to help kind of lead the discussion, but really take a step back and evaluate, what each group is doing, how they function, how we can all share information, and kind of recommitting to the customer mapping that was done maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I think there's going to be some very good conversations that come out of that meeting in terms of how all of our groups function together, and hopefully getting some consensus on things that group can do in terms of projects to move forward with some economic development initiatives. And based on early conversations, it seems like a lot of our discussions going to center around this customer mapping experience, how we can share information about people that are interested in developing in Red Wing, and making sure that they get to the right people, especially when it comes to how to get a project done and move forward. And then secondly, marketing, being able to share resources for marketing the community in general versus everybody having their own separate piece of that process. We talked about Bauer Built on that one. With 115 Dakota Street, as you may recall, that building was demolished late last year. There's a few minor things that need to be cleaned up on the site as part of that contract, and that should get done hopefully as soon as conditions allow here this spring, if it stays warm out there, hopefully. We talked about the downtown projects. The only update on that is that the Fleischmann Moultrie building is still a building that is there, and the developer that was looking at that is looking at some other alternatives for the downtown. They're still interested, and we've still had some conversations with them, trying to find some other sites that might be an option and fit for them. A couple other good, I think, pieces of information is the city was able to and was successfully approved for a grant to complete some preliminary design work for redesign of the Jordan Court area. So we've reached out to our consultant that was initially contacted for that, and we expect to see some work being done later in March into April. First of all, to really get some feedback from property owners in and around that area, but then to begin that process of looking at, again, a redesign of Jordan Court. The Downtown Redevelopment Challenge has been launched. I think we've talked about that previously, but that, as I understand it, talking to the Downtown Main Street Director, there has been a fairly high level of interest in that program. So she's fielded a number of calls, and we're hopeful that there's a project that comes forward through there that otherwise maybe wouldn't have happened. And then finally, I think the port's looking at and working with its marketing committee and the consultant that was hired for doing some marketing work and research for the community. And so we should see some additional either steps or some additional discussions on marketing in general coming forward here. We did have a contract with a consultant that continued into this year, and so we'll be evaluating what that contract looks like and what work we expect to get done into this new year. And with that, I think that's where I want to probably finish. I don't think I have a lot to add at this point. Otherwise, I'd open up for any other questions from the council about activities and things happening at the port.
Questions or comments for Kyle from the council? Anything else for this item?
That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Kyle.
All right. Thank you.
All right, you guys. Thank you, Kyle. Is that it?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm not doing so hot tonight, you guys. I guess I'll blame it on daylight savings time, but we need to jump back up to item 7 and do public comment. All this March sun must be impacting my brain tonight. So again, I apologize. I have one person who signed up previously on public comment, so I'll call for that individual first, and then I'll open it up for anyone else who has an item on this agenda. So the public comment segment of the meeting is where members of the public can speak on topics that are not on the agenda. We welcome all opinions and ideas. Anyone present at the meeting can speak about items not on the agenda. But as this meeting is virtual, signing up ahead of time is encouraged and can be done by emailing or calling the email address and the number provided. by 3 o'clock of the day of the meeting. Anyone who cannot attend the meeting but would like to have their comments entered into the public record can do so by submitting an email or calling the same number listed above by that time on this day. And then those records will be, or those emails will be submitted into our records. So with that, I will call on Chaz Neal. Chaz, if you are here, thank you for your patience. Chaz, if you are here for public comment. All right, I will call again at the end of public comment. If there's anyone else wishing to speak on an item that's not on the agenda tonight, you can go ahead and unmute yourself or use the raise your hand feature or turn on your video. I'm not seeing anyone. And I just will remind you that since this is a virtual meeting, if we get to an item on the agenda, it's always helpful to sign up ahead of time. But if we get to an agenda item and you wish to speak on that at the beginning of that agenda item, please turn on your video or use that raise your hand feature. Public comments are at the beginning of those items, so I'll try and catch you right away. But otherwise, it is always best to sign up ahead of time. Otherwise, we'll quickly pass through things, and sometimes I make mistakes as well. So one more time, I'll see if Chaz or anyone else wishes to make any public comment tonight. All right, seeing none, I think we are ready to move to item 8B, the Council Liaison Commission reports. Yes, Laurel.
I have one update to bring from the Great River Rail Commission. We learned at our last meeting that Amtrak and CP Rail are currently in negotiations to begin the operations of the TCMC second train. Depending on how quickly those negotiations can happen, the train could start running as early as the new year and potentially as early as this fall. They're working on negotiating an agreement that would allow them to run the train while the improvements that were part of what we were seeking funding for are being done instead of waiting until after they're complete. So that's really exciting news for our community that there's the potential for that second train as early as this fall.
Thank you, Laurel. Any other Board of Commission reports, Council Liaison Commission reports? Evan.
Yeah, I want to report from the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. We a meeting on March 8th. One of the interesting first items was that there was a meeting of the Housing Strategy Partners meeting with Kurt and various other members who are involved in that, and that's directly as a kind of as a result of the matrix that was created from our housing instability study. So they're hitting the ground running. They are tasked with being the lead agency on Strategy 1, which is developing 15 new supportive housing units and 24 to 30 shallow subsidy units by 2030. So they're hitting the ground running on that. I thought that was really good. Two other things that were on their agenda I thought were big is they did approval of bids for Jordan Tower 2 office building concrete sidewalk replacement. That sidewalk is not ADA, and they feel like they need to get that sidewalk in compliance. And then they approved HUD approved housing choice voucher expedited regulatory waivers so that they can more easily put those monies, so we can increase the utilization of those funds for people who need those vouchers. So a lot going on there, and it's good to see Kurt really just reaching right in and getting things done. That's it.
Thank you, Evan. All right, any other Council Liaison Commission reports? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Any item anyone wishes to pull? Seeing none,
Move to approve the consent agenda as is.
Second.
all right, motion by Evan, second by Kim to approve the consent agenda as is. We'll do roll call on that, please, Kay?
Bysy,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Stinson,
Aye.
Hoag.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you, Kay. All right, that brings us down to motions and general business. Item 10, our first item is consider action related to Red Wing Avenue and Hewitt Boulevard street utility extensions. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you, Council President, council members. Here tonight, we've got a couple things on the agenda for this item for Hewitt Boulevard. First thing would be to hold the public hearing, and then there's the adoption of the assessment. So I'll go through this project a little bit, and then I'm going to turn it over to Zach Cronin, who's on our city attorney, to talk about an objection to the assessment that was received today. So first off, background of the project. This is the Hewitt Boulevard, Red Wing Avenue extension that we toured at the fall tour. I think we brought the council through there, took a look at the improvement. Very happy with the improvement. It's made a nice connection from the lower Burnside up to the top of Tyler Road there. So that was constructed by Pember Companies out of Menominee, Wisconsin. I closed that project out on, let's see here, September 27th. The council accepted the work and we closed that construction project. So next step of this was to go through the assessment calculations and present that to council. And that's what I'm going to present a little bit about that tonight here. And then we'll talk about next steps. First off, the nice thing about the assessments themselves is there's a few things through the process as we went, and you can see that in the write-up. When we first scoped this project out for the CIP, we were looking at a project back when we first looked at this at about $766,000 overall, not knowing what the right-of-way cost would be, kind of scoping that out with knowing we had to get property from the Mayo to do this project. However, at the time of the engineer's report, we were able to lower that project amount down to $556,000 because of negotiations with Mayo Clinic as far as how the right-of-way was going to be handled to make this connection possible. Again, at the bids, we realized very good construction bids for this project. So it again dropped down to $464,244. And that's what you're looking at in front of you right now. Based on assessment calculations, that puts $153,695 to the Mayo Clinic, $154,745 to Fairview Woods, and then to the Bartman Keller properties. Her Keller Bartman properties 4 and 5 would be around $58,000 for those as well. So the one thing to note with the Keller Bartman properties and the Mayo Clinic, we entered into assessment waiver agreements that they had signed that prior to the project getting started. So those waiver agreements had dollar amounts that are well above what the actual assessments that we're proposing here. So we're happy about that. The other thing that I wanted to point out was we did finish the sidewalk up on top of the hill too, which was a nice connection. Our project ended just past the driveway just at the driveway to Fairview Woods where the road ended. But then there was going to be a sidewalk gap back to the clinic, to the Mayo Clinic. And we talked to them. We said, we've got a contractor here. We're already getting questions from some of the residents at that Fairview Woods about being able to walk down to Lower Burnside and have this connection. And some of the people up at the clinic were also interested in it. So we talked to the Mayo Clinic and they agreed to actually do it as part of our project. So I added those sidewalk costs onto their assessments. So what happened is they got the $40,000 credit for the right of way that they donated for the project, but then they're paying about $39,000 in assessments. So it kind of washed itself out. But now that connection is made. So we have a full sidewalk connection and a road connection from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill there. So we're happy with that. I think that's it for that I kind of wanted to go over right now. I'm going to turn it over to Zach to talk more about the objection, the assessment objection that was received today and what next steps there that council can consider. So Zach, you're on.
All right, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
I've been having some audio issues. So as Jay mentioned, the city did receive a written objection from a property owner this afternoon. The city can proceed with the public hearing. After the public hearing, it has the option to approve the assessment as Jay outlined in his packet documents. Additionally, or alternatively, the city could adjourn the public hearing to give city staff more time to review the objection and consider if there's any changes that need to be made in light of that objection. If the city council goes with that option, there's a statute that specifically addresses adjournment. It says if the council is going to adjourn the assessment meeting or hearing, it has to state the time, place, and location of the continued hearing in the minutes or the official record. So if that's, in talking with Jay, I think staff has some interest in just giving this a little bit more consideration. So if that's something we want to go with, there's a process we can do. It's pretty straightforward and continue this for another meeting.
Thank you, Zach. And I see, Rob, you are on. So at the start of this item, I'll open it up if you have any comments.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Rob Stefanowitz. I'm an attorney with Larkin Hoffman Law Firm in Minneapolis. Appreciate you giving me time to speak with you briefly tonight. I did submit an objection letter. I see that made its way into your hands and into the agenda. My client is Fairview Woods, the owner of the property at 470 Hewitt. This is the home to the Deercrest Senior Living Facility. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. We have submitted our objection and identified in the letter is the legal basis for special assessments. I'm not going to burden you with that. I know I'm sure council will discuss that with you. I would just like to highlight a few things. As the city identified in the staff report, there were two purposes for this project, really developer driven to provide that secondary access. And then there's also identified the general benefit of the traveling public. Respectfully, I would submit that neither one of those purposes reflect a special benefit to my client's property. In further, the imposition of $154,000 in the special assessments for a project that my client did not request and did not need is a heavy burden, especially to a independent assisted living and memory care facility coming off of COVID and all the implications and hardships that followed to facilities of this nature with the pandemic. We would ask that the city council table this matter. We're hopeful. We're interested in discussing. It sounds like the council is interested in discussing as well, perhaps a workable solution on this. And unless there's questions for me, my request first is that there be no special assessments levied against my client's property. Alternatively, that this be adjourned and discussed further. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And with that, I'll open the public hearing to anyone else wishing to speak on this item. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? I'm not seeing any hands up or any unmuted videos. Yes, Dean?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing because there's only no one else out there.
Second.
A motion by Dean, second by Evan to close the public hearing. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Brown,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Stinson,
Aye.
Hove.
Aye.
Heisey.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
All right. Yes, Dean.
My memory isn't as good as it used to be, but I remember something about when we approved this project up there in the first place, that part of the agreement, and Jay, maybe you can correct me on this, part of that agreement was that this particular company would not make objections when we proposed to put that road through. Am I off base here, or am I remembering wrong or something? I just remember something about that was in the contract before we approved it.
So I can speak to that, Dean. No, not when we approved this project. There was when
we approved their project, when they built their.
Yeah, correct. When they to go back in time, when they got approval for the Fairview Woods project originally,
Correct.
they had signed a developers agreement that waived their right to appeal an assessment, but there was a 10-year time frame on that, which expired in 2000. It was 2006 was a signed agreement and expired in 2016.
That's
so by the time we started looking at getting this done again, it was beyond that waiver. Correct.
Okay.
But you did remember that correctly. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Evan?
I guess I have a question for Zach. I mean, what procedurally to adjourn, what needs to happen?
Yep, so the council would need to make a motion to adjourn the public hearing. So essentially, we'd continue this discussion until a future meeting. I think Jay mentioned the second. I know we've closed it already, so we'd make a motion to continue the public hearing I think Jay mentioned the second meeting in April, just to give city staff more time to review this. And in the minutes, we'd have to note that, again, the time, place, and location of the adjourned meeting.
So the second meeting would be April 11th, or the first meeting of April. Is that what you said, Zach?
Jay, I guess I'll defer to you, Jay, on when you're thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking, Becky, just to have some time to look at this, I was thinking adjourn it to the April 25th meeting.
Is there a particular timeline that we need to be aware of, since it'll go on the 2023 assessment?
I will need to review that timeline. That's, again, something that we're going to look at in the interim, but I do not believe there's any a continuance of 1 month. I don't think would affect anything. These would be payable in January of 2023.
Yeah, and I believe Marshall can speak to it as well, but there's a fall deadline to have assessments certified to the county. So I think we could give us some time here to look at this, to work with Fairview Woods as they've suggested tonight. And I think the second meeting in April makes sense.
Procedurally, is there anything that we need to do to unclose the meeting before we adjourn the public hearing?
I should have jumped in when I heard that come up. I think we should make a motion to reopen and adjourn the public hearing that was set for tonight. And then again, state the April 25th meeting time and location.
Thank you, Zach.
I'll make the motion to open and adjourn the meeting to the April 25th City Council meeting.
I'll second.
And that will begin, the city council meeting will begin at 6 p.m. on April 25th.
In the council chambers.
Any further discussion on this item? Zach, do you believe we've covered everything on that?
That motion was approved, right? I maybe just.
That motion was just made and seconded. I just
Okay.
want to, we have not voted on it.
That covers it then.
Okay. So, Kay, would you do a roll call on that, please?
Yes. Norton,
Aye.
Stinson,
Aye.
Hove,
Aye.
Bizey,
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Zach, for helping us navigate through that procedure as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item 10B. Consider motion to adopt resolution 7747 denying a request by Lutheran Social Services of Minnesota to change the zoning designation of 5225 Highway 61 West from agricultural to civic. And I'll let you take it away, Kyle.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So I think our council president did summarize the request fairly well in terms of the action tonight. I just want to quickly go through the staff report that's in your packet to explain what's in there and kind of the next steps. So what staff did is based on the last meeting, the council discussed the request by Lutheran Social Services for the rezoning, ultimately decided that the council felt that the application should be denied, and then directed staff to develop findings of fact to bring forward at this meeting. So that's essentially what we've done. So the report includes a quick summary of the application. You don't have the full details in this report. That is an attachment, though, from the last meeting. So if you did want to see any information that was discussed previously, that's in that previous report. So the new report includes a brief summary of the council discussion from the meeting. And then later on in the report, staff has taken those discussion points and crafted those into specific findings of fact for this particular item. And then those findings of fact get translated into the resolution that's in your packet tonight for action. So that's the genesis of those discussion points. So if there's anything in there that doesn't seem right, then definitely now would be the time for us to talk about that and make sure those are adjusted accordingly. There are two things I want to point out specifically based on questions from the last meeting as they relate to this particular application and this site. The first, there was a question about the zoning deadline and when the council would have to take action on this. So I've put dates in there based on the information that we have from the applicant and from our files. Just to kind of summarize that, the application was considered complete by the city on January 31st of this year. That means the city's 60-day rule deadline for action would be April 1st. However, the city has the ability to extend that without any approval or authorization from the applicant for another 60 days. So our technical deadline for the 120 days would be May 31st of 2022. So the council does have some additional time if you wanted to have further conversations on this item. So we want to make sure you're aware of that. Then the other major question that came up related to zoning compliance and whether or not the current use of the site was in compliance with the city's requirements. And so I did give you a couple definitions and talk briefly about the current use of the property. Based on all appearances in our conversations with the Montessori school, they are operating and conducting education activities there for children that are older than preschool age. So based on that, that would not be in compliance with our current requirements, which does not allow an elementary school within an agricultural residential zoning district, which is the current zoning on the property. So having said that, if the council does decide not to move forward with the resolution denying the zoning amendment, or I should say if the council does move forward with that action, that does mean there needs to be some follow-up with the school about the compliance and operation on that particular property. And essentially that means they would have to cease serving children that are over 4 years or preschool age on this particular site, and would either need to stop that or find another location elsewhere in the community where that was allowed. So that you do have the findings of fact here. So you have that in the resolution. I would just quickly note that there are 4 findings of fact required for a zoning amendment. Those are listed, again, both in your staff report and in the resolution of approval. Those 4 particular findings relate back to the following points. 1, that the zoning amendment is not consistent with the comprehensive plan. 2, that the zoning amendment is not in the public interest and is solely for the interest of a single property. 3, that the existing uses of the property and the existing zoning classifications of the property within the general areas of the property in question are not compatible with the proposed zoning. And then 4, that there has not been a change in the character or the trend of development in the area that would support the proposed zoning change. And like I said, I'm not going to go through and list out each of those discussion points. Those are in your packet, and they're really taken directly from the discussion the council had at your last meeting. Then the final section of the report is listing some alternatives that the council may want to consider, and I'm happy to talk through these if there's more questions on those. But staff really laid out hopefully all the options that you have on the table right now. One would be to proceed with the denial of the rezoning request, which could be done by adopting the resolution that's in your packet and referenced at the start of the report. The second option would be to table it to give time for our staff or committee members to work through some other zoning questions on this site or the area or with the school and Lutheran Social Services. Those alternatives would be looking at the potential of a zoning text amendment, which would change the zoning requirements for the agricultural residential district, which is the current zoning, to either allow a school or allow it through some other process. One of the benefits of this particular course of action is that it would help alleviate some of the council's concerns about spot zoning on the property. It would also take into account some of the other activities in the area that are currently happening within that agricultural residential use classification, and specifically the activities taking place at the Tower View campus and the school that's happening and occurring on that particular site. A second option would be to consider expanding the scope of the zoning amendment that was proposed, whereas as you may recall previously, Lutheran Social Services was rezoning only a portion of their property, which was contained to the center portion of their land. One option would be to consider an amendment that would expand that to the entire site. That way it would help, again, alleviate some of those concerns about spot zoning by making that civic district contiguous to the Burnside Elementary School site. And then lastly, I think staff suggesting that there could be a broader zoning review. And I believe the council did mention this and talk about this a little bit, that there really needs to be a broader look at what's happening in the area around this particular site before the city makes some zoning changes. And that would presumably bring into account the recent change for the old Burnside School just south of this property, the Anderson Center, this school site, and what's happening with some of the industrial guided property in and around this area. And then finally, I think we have 2 other options. One would be that the council denies the application, but then directs staff to work and continue to work on maybe some other options for this property. And then lastly, to consider the Planning Commission's original recommendation, which was for approval of the request. And then I do want to point out that we've had some conversations since the last meeting with Dean Minardi of the Lutheran Social Services. Dean did want to be on the meeting and was planning on being here tonight to address the council. However, he did have something come up where he's not able to attend. There are 2 representatives of Lutheran Social Services on the video call tonight, and I believe they did want to address the council. So, and unfortunately, I did not get their names and write those down in advance of the meeting, but they are here and would like to address the council and talk a little bit about their site, their plans for the property, and some other comments about this matter. So with that, I'm going to stop there and open it up for questions from the council.
All right, with that, I'm going to open this up to people who wanted to speak on this item that's on the agenda. So I see, Don, you have your hand raised, so I'll call on you first and then open it up to others.
Thank you. My name is Dawn Kuzman. I am with Lutheran Social Service. I've been within the property management team for over 16 years, but with Lutheran Social Service for 28 years. I'm very familiar with this property. We have served for several years, over 75 years in that location, the community. And we have no intentions on selling those parcels. And we certainly want to continue to serve the community of Red Wing with the parcels. LSS wants to commit to a long-term relationship with Creekstone. That's who obviously is wanting to come in and do services there. And I just want to make sure that we state that we have no intentions of selling the property. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Don. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? Turn your video on or use the raise your hand feature.
Hello, my name is Steve Christensen with Lutheran Social Services as well. I've been with LSS for 2 years now, and I'm the Director of Residential Properties, and I'm here with Don in support.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else wishing to speak on this one? All right, then I will go ahead and open this up to council. Yeah, Evan?
Well, I first kind of have a quick question. I don't want to get too far down the weeds, but one of the options would be a larger rezoning kind of analysis. My understanding is that seems like it potentially be longer than our time period, and also maybe longer than we might need to know sooner. Is that correct or incorrect?
It could be correct. I mean, generally anything that would have to go through, or that would be a zoning amendment, would have to go through the planning commission. So you're looking at a minimum of 30 to 60 days there for the city to establish a public hearing, get public feedback on it. And I think as part of that process, we would want to have some discussions in advance of that to make sure that we have the right mix there, or right discussion about the zoning in the area. So it potentially could be. You could also get that done sooner, depending on again, the process and how long you want to take to do this. Really, I think the key question out there would be the Anderson Center seems to be the one that gets brought up quite a bit, about whether or not that zoning actually makes sense for that use out there. And I think from a staff perspective, we just haven't really looked at that in great detail to say, okay, what are the uses, what's happening, how does that fit in with the AR zoning, or is there a better mix there, or a better zoning option for that site? Otherwise, the discussion really stems from what we've had previously on this property about the Lutheran Social Services, what should that be, and what that should look like long term.
Okay, well, that being said, I mean, that for me, sort of like having that planning would be sort of the ideal situation, but I don't think we're there. So I would just say right now, my position is essentially this. I like either considering a text amendment, working to figure that out, that would, as you say, cover both of the schools, or rezoning the whole property so that it abuts against, at least on one side, with the city's own civic district there at Burnside, and that it feels like a complete process. So I kind of support that position in general. I think, what I don't like is having these three little, two of these parcels that are just strange, just left away. And if either of those options addresses that for me. Now, I understand there are other criticisms from other people, but I would sort of be in favor of saying, let's give staff time to work it out.
Dean and then Kim?
Yeah, so are you favoring to table this, or do an extension of 60 days to look at this? I kind of have, everybody brings in the other school across the highway, but let's be realistic here. That school was there before the city decided to rezone it and change it. It was there before the industrial park was put in. Also next to, it was farmland. That was so that one was been there. We changed the zoning. It became non-conforming, but it was okay because it was there already. So I'm not as concerned with that one. It sits back far, and there's a big buffer between that and the industrial zoning. My biggest issue with this one is it's directly across the street from an I-1 zone. So I think we need to look at the zoning. A text amendment, that's just a way of it's another way of spot zoning without saying spot zoning. That's my opinion on it. It really is. So I'm in favor of looking at all of the zoning, but I don't think it can be done between now and May. That's where I'm looking at. I still think this is a bad idea of putting a school in that location.
Kim?
Thank you. I agree with Evan. I would like us to take a look at either the text amendment or expanding the zoning map, so that we aren't piecing it out. I personally think it's a great use of the building rather than having it sit there not being used fully. And we have other things within our community that wouldn't necessarily fit next to what they're zoned at. So I'd like to either table it for 60 days or something so that we give them staff time to work on this. Thank you.
Laurel, do you want to chime in before I jump in? Okay. I appreciate, I think that the alternates that we've been offered, for me, feel like we're going in a better direction than we were. I prefer the text amendment of allowing a private and public school under conditional uses. I think that allows us, allows the Advisory Planning Commission to look at each of those requests and to decide. I mean, sort of to Dean's point about, and that's the point that I brought up last time, what it's located next to. It allows us to sort of consider what it's located next to, and the Advisory Planning Commission or the council to say, it's across the street from a light industrial or a busy highway, and we recommend, or we would put a condition of a fence or something along that barrier. There could be conditions, and it could be looked at each individually rather than as an allowed use. So I tend to favor a text amendment of putting a private or public schools under a conditional use of agriculture. I can get on board with that whole civic area, zoning that whole civic area. The challenge for me on that is I feel like until we really do a deeper dive into that intersection, I still ask myself, is civic the correct zone for that? And the idea that I brought up last time is, we talked about arts and culture and other things at this corridor. At some point we created this civic zone, and the civic zone was meant for the historic mall district. And so it makes me just think, is there a better sort of zone that fits this corridor that we haven't really yet looked at? And I think that that's a greater and much longer discussion and review. And with the time frame that I'm sure that Creekstone has and that we have by requirement, I don't know that we can get there. So again, I think that there are several of us that are maybe aligned with suggesting tabling it and having staff work with Creekstone Montessori or with Lutheran Social Services rather. Is that your suggestion, Kyle? So I was a little bit confused that in my opinion, we would deny this request and a new request would come forward, but you're saying that this request could be modified, but we would still have to go through another public hearing. Is that the correct process?
Yes. I mean, technically, you're being asked to take action on a specific application that was put in front of you, and so you should deal with that. Now, if there's some other action the council wants to take, you as the council have the ability to initiate a zoning amendment or zoning change, and we can always bring that back to you for action. I wasn't quite sure how you wanted to handle this particular request, which is why we gave you those different options in case there was further conversation on this. The cleanest in my mind is that either the applicant withdraws the request and then submits something different or a new request, or the council denies the request and then directs us to do something different on this property. Then we have clear direction. We can move ahead and take care of it and bring it back to you for further discussion. Otherwise, as we talked about the timing, the concern we'd have as staff is if there's not clear direction what the council wants to do, that could take us more time to go through that process and get input. Whereas if you have a very specific direction you want to go, like a text amendment, we can probably get that scheduled right away and have that back in front of the Planning Commission, at their next meeting for a public hearing and talk through that and bring you a recommendation back probably by next month. So I think that's the key for us, is if there's clear direction on this, then maybe the best would be to deal with this application and then direct us to take some other action to, move in the direction that you want as a council.
Thank you, Kyle. Given the options in front of us, is there some consensus about those? About either the text amendment or about zoning it all as civic, or tabling it, or approving it or denying it? Yes, Dean.
Well, I guess we have to look at what the goal here is. If the goal here is to have a school there, the cleanest, easiest way for this to be done is to table it, have them pull it. Because if we deny it, it's a year before they can come back and apply. But if they pull it and come back with a different plan, work with staff, you know, that's really the cleanest, the best way to do this. If we can still table it for the 60 days, I'm just not sure that that's going to be enough time to get everything done. So that's just my personal opinion. You know, check with Kyle and see if he thinks they can get it done in 60 days. Sounds like a text amendment can come back pretty fast. I don't know that I could actually support that, but I'm only 1 out of 6. So, but I would like to just make sure that you understand that the cleanest way is to table it, have Lutheran Social Services pull the application, and then that way they can resubmit another application with the council's, you know, with what they've heard from the council here.
My understanding, Kyle, was that we could deny it and an entity, a body, can come back with a significantly changed application. Is that they can't come back in a year with the same request? Would a text amendment or rezoning the entire parcel be significantly changed?
Yeah, I would consider a zoning text amendment to be a substantially different application than a zoning map amendment. Then I do want to point out too, I think based on our conversations with Lutheran Social Services, I think they would be open to withdrawing the request if they knew the council was open to another path or another type of request. So I think we're happy to have that conversation with them if the council wants to table and have us work towards something else. If for some reason they decide not to do that, then we could bring it back to you and say this is back, you know, for a formal action so we can get this off our plate.
Evan, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I'm sort of, and well, let's just be to kind of hit to Dean's question. From my point of view, we have 2 schools out there. They've been operating. I know you say they're different geographically, but I think there are ways to handle some concerns there. I don't want to. I'm not interested in forcing the school out. That's just where I'm at. So I think we need to consider one of those 2 alternatives. I kind of favor rezoning the entire parcel as civic, and the reason why, understanding what Becky said about, you know, you can put things on COP, is that I think it does create a sense of continuity, and it does, for me, make a lot of sense in that area. And I think it will, it could potentially tie together the little parcel that we already, you know, made civic. So, but I am not, you know, if text amendment is where everyone wants to come down, I could get behind that. You know, it's one of those for me are the options. So I think before we go to table or something, we need to know what we're doing here.
And I'm in agreement, and I think part of the reason why I'm holding back on the civic again is just because in my head, I feel like that's a little bit more of a broader study to make sure that fits. I think down the road I could, you know, that may very well be the right zone for that. But I think that if we change that zone and then we come back and look at the 1961 property and the agricultural property across the street, and we say that, this is the future plan of this intersection, then are we going to, reconsider it? And I also think that a text amendment under a cup may be a faster process to get that done for them. And then we still have time to rezone that civic down the road too. With civic, of course, you've got that farming as non-conforming, which, it happens in our community. So as Dean said, perhaps across the street, it's likely to be a non-conforming because that zoning layer got added after they were doing that use, which is what we're looking at here. So my suggestion is we recommend a text amendment under conditional uses, and still, Evan, to your point, is come back and still look at this corridor and go that way. Kim.
Yeah, it sounds like the zoning text amendment would be quicker than the expanded, and we can always do the expanded after we do the zoning text amendment. So I can get behind and support that. We've got a couple schools out there already. It doesn't make sense to not approve this to me.
Dean.
Well, this goes to what I said last time. That's why I wanted to table it last time, is to give everybody a chance. I want to give everybody a chance. That's what I said. And so I'm not confirmed, or I'm not convinced that the text amendment is the right way to go. It might be in the short term, but this has got to get looked at before it gets. We're going to come up against this again. I'm telling you, it's not. This isn't an easy decision because unless we look at the entire zoning out on that end, we're gonna come into problems later. I just know we are. So I'm still not enthused about not having some kind of barrier though between the kids and the I-1 zone. That just bothers me. There's a lot of traffic on 19, and we're proposing more traffic when that gets developed. So that's a huge issue for me. So, but I'm okay with coming back with alternatives. I'll tell you that. And then have the planning commission. I'd like to see the planning commission take a really good hard look at that whole area. That's where I'm at.
Again, procedurally, it looks like a way forward for you, Kyle, is to table this. You can continue your conversations with Lutheran Social Services. You can bring it up at a future meeting for us to deny, or they can pull it. And then we can also give you direction as a motion in maybe after we've dealt with the first thing, whether we approve it, deny it, or table it, and then we can give you a direction. Is that?
Yes, I agree. And I think based on the council conversations and discussions to this point, I think they know where the council's at on the zoning map amendment just for the one parcel. So my thinking is their way forward would be a withdrawal, and then they would submit an application for a zoning text amendment. We would go through that process and bring that back. So that's what I would see happening here, but I can't speak for them, but we'll have a conversation with them about moving that forward that way if the council does table this tonight.
I'll make a motion to table this item until our next council meeting.
I'll second it.
All right, roll call, please, Kay.
Stinson,
Aye.
Hove,
Aye.
Bizey,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Norton.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
I will make a motion to, Kyle, if you're still there. Yeah, I'll make a motion to ask you to work on a text amendment of public or private schools under a conditional use under the agricultural zone.
Second.
Any discussion on that item? All right, Kay, roll call, please.
Hove,
No.
Bizey,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Stinson.
Aye.
4 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Evan, for that support. Okay, that brings us to item 10C, a motion to adopt resolution 7746, approving right-of-way application submittal to the United States Department of the Interior Bureau of Indian Affairs. Welcome again, Jay.
Thank you, Council President and councilors. This is interesting. This is the first time that I've ever tried to acquire right-of-way from the U.S. government. And in trying to talk to others around the state who may have done this to get an idea, there's not many that have. So very, very interesting application that you have in front of you tonight here. So what I wanted to talk about a little bit was some of the exhibits and the cooperation we've had with the tribal council's general counsel, their attorney, assistant attorney, Jessica Stoley. She has really organized this and put different pieces of this application to our project team to bring forward. And this is one of the ones that we have, because we will ultimately be the signers of the application. So we're working through a whole list of exhibits that get attached to this application that goes to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, U.S. Department of Interior, to convert U.S. trust lands to city right-of-way for our Sturgeon Lake Road project there. So the exhibits, it was a big packet that you had in front of you, because one of those exhibits is the EA and the environmental assessment and the finding of no significant impact for our project from the FHWA. So, over 100 pages there, and you had a lot to kind of look at there. But it's really a matter of compiling all of these exhibits that go to check certain boxes that they have to have looked at before they do such a land conversion like this. And the process ends that we've laid out with the Prairie Island Indian Community support resolution for this right-of-way transaction. So that's where I'm getting our resolution authorizing the cities to submit it and designating our council administrator as the signator of this submittal to the federal government. And then the next things, we're compiling the legal descriptions, the plat work that needs to be done. You've seen the insurance certificates that were included in your packet. The city's organization, we have to prove that we're a valid organization, and there was no direction in the application about what proves that. So our attorneys got together and were thinking that this resolution coupled with our city charter shows that we are a valid city and we have the rights to ask for right-of-way and take care of roadways and right-of-ways. Then there's some letters coming from offices at Prairie Island Indian Community, the endangered species. They're looking at that through their environmental offices out there. And then also the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer is looking at a portion of this and going to put a letter in for this application as well. So we just thought this is a good time to talk about this, put it on general business, give you an update that we are making good progress on moving this critical step of this overpass project forward. At the same time, give you an update that we're also talking with individual property owners out there for right-of-way acquisition that is needed, that's outside of the U.S. trust lands. And we've had some good conversations last week, met with a fair number of those individuals that are impacted by the project as well. So we're getting to this point. You approved the level 2 layout last fall, and that moved us to the spot where we need to now get the land to be able to build this important overpass project. So with that, maybe I'll just stop there and see if council has any other questions. I know there's still more to do here, and I will definitely come back to council when I have the final packet to show the resolution of support from Prairie Island Indian Community and so forth. But at this point, we just wanted to get authorization that when we're ready, we submit, and Kay signs the application, and we submit this application. So with that, I'll just see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Jay. Any questions for Jay on this item? Appreciate your work out there with our residents and neighbors at Prairie Island Indian Community. And I look forward to seeing it all sort of come back together to us as a complete package when we have all of those pieces and that letter of support from them as well.
Thank you.
Any other items or any other questions, discussion on that one? Make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 7746.
Second.
A motion by Kim, second by Evan to adopt resolution 7746. Any further discussion on this item? Roll call, please, Kate.
Bizey,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Stinson,
Aye.
Holt.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you, Kate. All right, thank you, Jay. That brings us to item 10D, consider action related to the continued use of face coverings in public buildings. Welcome, Laura.
Good evening, Council President Norton. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Oh, I don't know if I can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. So this item is about wearing masks and returning to in-person meetings, as noted in the report. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. We're hoping that the council will consider having us go mask-free in our public buildings beginning tomorrow morning. And the returning to in-person meetings stems from the public hearings that are already noticed for virtual meetings. And so the first date available for that would be after March 29th. And just a couple of things in the report, in case anybody didn't read it that's listening. The Goodhue County will return May 1st to their in-person meetings, and that's based on their public hearings. And we do have our city employees. We think about 80% vaccinated now. We're not really tracking that anymore because we don't have to, but we're mostly all vaccinated, and we've had no serious illness in the last 2 years. We're really appreciative of the City Council following the science and the CDC and the Minnesota Department of Health. And I'll just say thank you to the council on behalf of all the city employees, because I think overwhelmingly employees embraced what we were doing. And we had really nobody that gave us a hard time about it. And it's been 2 years, almost to the day, so it's a long time. And so I'll say also on behalf of the city employees, we're hoping that you will consider ending the mask mandate as of tomorrow morning. And with that, President Norton, I'll turn it back to you for your discussions.
Thank you, Laura. Questions or comments off the bat for Laura? Okay. Thoughts, council? Yeah, Dean?
Yeah, I'm ready. 2 years up. I'm ready to go. I want to go back to the council chambers and the school. Everybody knows I drive bus. We haven't had to wear masks for I think a couple weeks now, so at least a week or two. So I'm good with this. And matter of fact, I'll make the motion that Tuesday, March 15th of this year, we discontinue mandatory use of the face coverings for city employees and public facilities. And also on Tuesday, March 29th of this year, we return to in-person meetings for all boards and commissions and the city council. Public hearings are scheduled for the virtual until this date. Got it.
I'll second it.
All right, can I clarify in discussion here? It says after March 29th. So do you want that to be in person on March 30th and forward?
I believe so. I could look at the calendar real quick, or if Kay knows.
Yeah, Kay.
Yeah, let's get.
The 28th is the public hearing that we're concerned about, so we can start it on the 29th.
Okay, and that is how Dean's motion was made. So I just wanted to clarify that. So I'm in support of this. I think it really demonstrates that we can be really nimble. Obviously, we've had to sort of recognize our public hearings, but I appreciate that the numbers are low, and that's what we said we'd always look at is data. And they're low, and it shows that we can go back if we have to and come back when we're ready.
Yeah, we can't go back if the science says so. But right now, I'm ready to go back into council chambers.
Yeah, I agree, and I like the word nimble. I mean, I think it feels like a lot, but frankly, I mean, look at it. The county voted on this, and they're out in May. We're going to go back, mass tomorrow, and back in meetings a month before there, and meeting. So I think we're doing it right. Let's do it.
Well before we were as well. So I really appreciate that we watched the numbers and that we were able to provide services, have those public hearings, have our water, have our streets, because we kept all of our city staff, our public safety, everybody stayed safe, didn't all gather together in those chambers for those meetings. So I think the data says we're ready.
Yeah, and I do I just want to point out there that I do believe that we did it the right way. When we needed masks, we put them on. When we needed to be virtual, we did it. And if I remember right, it was a unanimous decision by the council to do that. And so, but I think time is right, and that's where we're at. And I hope we never have to go back.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this one? All right. Okay. Roll call, please.
Brown,
Aye.
Norden,
Aye.
Stinson,
Aye.
Hove,
Aye.
Heisey.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Great. Thank you. All right. That brings us down to item 11, council comments. Well, I have one quick one. It came to, I believe, all of us from a resident on No Mow May. And I just wanted to suggest that maybe the city take a look at whether they wanted to promote that. The No Mow May is a way to keep your leaf litter on your yards until the temperature, I think, warms up to consistently above 50 degrees Fahrenheit to help all of our pollinators. I think a lot of us are working really hard to do that. Maybe that could go through sustainability. Maybe that's just a pretty smooth, motion, or just a smooth sort of something that can be promoted. But I certainly will be supporting the No Mow May, or at least until the temperature is up warm enough to get those guys flying again and find some food. Yep, I saw Kim's hand and then Dean's. Or maybe I didn't see your hand, Kim, just a nod. Okay, Dean.
Okay, this is more of a comment on the gas prices. Years ago I brought it up about when diesel was hitting $4 a gallon, that we have some kind of procedure. I know that was took effect this year because we already did it. My issue this year though is there a way, because this is going to affect the city, but I'd like to see if staff could find a way that we don't have to put more surcharges on. That's what I'm asking. Can that be at least looked at? Because the price of gas and diesel, in my opinion, is going to continue to go up for at least another month before it gets really leveled off. I noticed on the news tonight they said that it was starting to level off, but yeah, I'm not going to believe that yet. We got a long way to go on this thing. So is there a way that we could at least try and mitigate that so we don't have to add any more surcharges on?
Trying to bring some ideas.
But I'm just putting it out there.
Gonna add that to a status update maybe sometime in the future, okay?
Yeah. And that might not be 2 weeks or a month, but just to get it out there, I want to make sure that we have something or have a plan together, one of the two.
All right, any other council comments? All right, we'll move down to council administrator status report then, please, Kay.
Okay, I wanted to highlight a couple things and then add a couple things. So one thing Jessica McGee asked me to mention is that we are beginning story time again this Wednesday at 10:30 in Central Park. So that's a sure sign that we're at spring. And then also late in the day today, we added an update from the Arts and Culture Commission. So I just want to read this real quick. They're talking about the lodging tax. So right now, the current lodging tax does not allow funds to be contributed to the purchase of public art. In order for this to occur, an additional 1% would need to be added to our local lodging tax by the Minnesota State Legislature. This would require community buy-in, which would require a great deal of public outreach. This would also require lobbying of the proposal to the state legislature. We believe that this idea has merit and should be further investigated for feasibility. We will be adding this research to our 5-year action plan that we're currently in the process of developing with forecasts. So that's a follow-up from the Arts and Culture Commission. And Jessica did submit that to me, but I missed it and didn't get it in the status report. So the other things I wanted to mention is just a highlight on the retail amendment for the LI light industrial zone. That is going to the Planning Commission to conduct a public hearing, and the council will be seeing that on March 28th. Also, just a thank you to sergeants for volunteering again to plant the flower pots in the downtown. You know, in the quote from Dave, he talks about our great partnership and collaboration, and we would second that because we feel like we have a really good relationship with sergeants and really appreciate their contributions. And another thank you to the Red Wing Professional Firefighters Local 0599. Because they were the only ones available or eligible to apply for a grant to do some on-site training for confined space. They made that application. We received that funding. So not only is this good training, but it brings in outside individuals who we think could be looking at Red Wing as a future employer. So we appreciate that partnership with the union on that. And then also, just to make sure everybody knows, the 209 East 5th Street foreclosure, that did go from Goodhue County directly to the HRA. They've got some plans for developing a duplex on that site, so we will see more about that in the future. And then also, on page 3 of 4, the Arts and Culture Heritage Fund did grant $9,600 to the city for the memorial plaque that will be up on, the Veterans Memorial plaque that'll be up on the Veterans Overlooks. That's part of that flagpole area. So that's good news. That's all I had unless you have any questions.
Any questions or comments for the council administrator status report? All right, thank you, Kay. All right, with that, we are down to item 13, a motion to go into closed session to discuss the case of the City of Red Wing versus Seward Real Estate LLC et al. And the city's options in the litigation. The open meeting law, Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3B allows the city council to close a meeting for the following purpose, among others, to discuss pending litigation under the attorney-client privilege. Staff will ask the council to close the meeting to meet with its attorney regarding the city's options for settlement in the case of the City of Red Wing versus Seward Real Estate LLC et al. There is a need for absolute confidentiality because the city's position would be compromised if such discussions took place in public and could be overheard by the other party. Accordingly, pursuant to the law I have cited, I will hereby entertain a motion that this meeting be closed pursuant to the attorney-client privilege.
Evan, so moved.
Second.
A motion by Evan, second by Dean. Roll call, please.
Norton,
Aye.
Stinson,
Aye.
Hove,
Aye.
Bizey,
Aye.
Brown.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you. With that, we are in closed session and we'll pause while IT sets us up in closed session. Okay, can you state who needs to be on? It's the council members, Zach, yourself,
Yep.
Marshall.
Marshall and Jay.
And
then-
Mayor Wilson.
And Kyle as well.
Oh, and Kyle also. Okay.
So this Ron and Chief Warner need to be removed.
Right. Working on that now.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yep, you're welcome. And you said Marshall, Zach, And Jay stay?
And Kyle Platt stay.
How
And Mayor
about
Wilson.
Ron?
No.
Okay, sounds good.